Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man. About a year ago, as of the time of this video's uh, release or publication, I made a video detailing how I would, how I would reboot the Charmed IP. And the video on how exactly I would do that should appear over the window I'm currently in. For those of you who for those of you who want the quick version, the basis behind my reboot is that I would is that the magic that would that would allow for them to that would allow for the main characters to uh, to become these action adventure protagonists wouldn't come from wouldn't come from Celtic or American settler folklore traditions, but rather would come from uh, various pagan slash polytheistic mythologies, with the leads themselves being empowered by a figure from Greek mythology. And yes, I do in fact mean one figure. I'll get into the specifics at a later time. For now, ever since I've made that video, I have been looking at, I've been looking through other videos that have been made specifically about the original Charmed series. Primarily videos by Really Beloved and Better with Bob, and I have to say that I have found them to be very interesting. What it is that what it is that they've said about the show, and how exactly the original series tackles all of the stories that it was trying to tell, and and I thought that if my reboot of the series is to mm, is to really catch a similar footing, I should potentially focus a little bit more on those aspects, a little bit more on uh, where the characters are starting, and and allow that to kind of fuel where it is they're going. And for that reason, I'm going to do several videos where I talk first of all about the cast, second of all about a potential plot for the series pilot. And I'm gonna start by talking about who I would cast as the Greek gods within my new interpretation of the show. Why am I starting by talking about the Greek gods? Well, because they are, because they are a very motley and very interesting bunch in and of themselves, and I imagine that, I imagine that even beyond the idea of this being a video related to the Charmed franchise, there is still plenty to be gleaned from a potential interpretation of, or from a yeah from the effort of interpreting the Greek gods and trying to assess what kind of kind of roles they would have in a more in a more modern concept of or rather in a more modern for TV uh, concept and setting for when it comes to action adventure stories, because there are a whole variety of modern retellings, but they still take place in ancient Greece. Percy Jackson did do did do some pretty interesting things in order to bring the gods to in order to bring the gods into the modern day. However, I do admit I find the challenge interesting enough on an intellectual level to where I would also want to give my spin on them. I'm not going to talk about the entirety of the pantheon of ancient Greece, because there are literally like 3,000 gods dedicated to rivers alone. Um, and nor am I going to talk about all of the Olympian gods either, because yeah, they're not because there are particularly many. There are only about 12 of them, but I I'm not necessarily sure how I can connect them to having meaningful roles in the series moving forward. So, for the sake of this video, I'm only looking at the characters or the Greek gods who I imagine having a broader role in the series as it progresses. So, with that very long, uh, that very long introduction out of the way, it's time I delved into the actual video, starting with Ares, the god of war. Ares is a very peculiar figure within the within Greek mythology, or more precisely within retellings of Greek fantasy, because the very low IQ retellings very much just very much make Ares out to be to be the meathead jock kind of war god. He's just the kind of character who has power and just kind of stomps it and just kind of stomps wildly, constantly trying to prove it. And as such, these interpretations tend to view Ares himself as a personification of that brute and raw power. Looking into the mythology itself, Ares himself actually, actually has a less honorable, or even less dignified, even less meaningful presence to to the war. To within his stories, or when it comes to warfare itself. In fact, he is constantly, he's constantly, he's constantly trying to, he's constantly getting himself into issues that he finds himself incapable of solving. For example, in fact, I think there is one particular story where, where his father Zeus, king of the gods, says that if he were any other figure, he would just let him, he would just let him reap what he sowed. And for that reason, that reason, it is very easy to uh, see Ares go into that opposite direction of having him just be like the like a loudmouth coward, more Joffrey Baratheon as opposed to Ramsay Bolton. And yeah, keep in mind this will not be the only Game of Thrones reference I'm going to use. So there are, I will resort to that soon enough. Anyway, the point is, it is very tempting to see, to have, to play Ares as a coward with delusions of grandeur. But that interpretation doesn't really work either, because if you think about it, war really is really is a constant presence throughout humanity, to the point where there is actually a god specifically for it. However, that however, while he I really need to collect my thoughts here. So sorry for the absence. Sorry for the absence of any words. Uh, However, uh, even beyond being such an omnipresent that there needs to be a god of war, there is a one could argue that his sister Athena is is a goddess of war as well, but she embodies a different aspect of war. To her, it's all about it's about the strategical or the tactical aspect of war. Ares, by contrast, is the sheer bloodlust of war. He is he's the instigator. Has that. He embodies that desire, that drive towards conflict, towards violence, towards domination, and and really not a lot of interpretations I really see delving into that particular aspect of him simply being this presence that drives people towards wanting control and power over others. And that is really what makes Ares, I would say, as a figure of a literary figure, a mythological figure, um, particularly noteworthy. The fact that he has this grasp and this influence over over the rest of society. He is not just he's not just in the crowd. He's actively moving the crowd, shaking it in a variety of different ways. He is making you uh, he is pushing you towards towards various actions. The fact that he doesn't involve himself much beyond that, or doesn't want to involve himself much beyond that, is because he doesn't need to. He has already done his part. He set the rest of this he set the rest of the events in motion. And really, I think that is the most interesting facet about Ares. Not necessarily that he himself is a force of nature, but the fact that he makes you into a force of nature. And also that aspect of him can turn towards can turn in different ways, because aside from violence and control over others, uh, Ares also embodies to some extent that that repression, that power, and turning that towards your own goals and standing up for yourself. That can be that can be a meaningful role within someone's life. And I very much imagine him potentially starting out as a villain within this interpretation, but eventually morphing into a more positive, if not even if not outright heroic figure. And the character who I think would be most effectively capable of embodying that duality of preparing someone to war, to conflict, but also giving them some level of dimensionality uh, uh, in terms of what it is, in terms of uh, the goals towards which you fight, is Liev Schreiber. Like, he has he has played a variety of action roles in the past, primarily as villains. So I can safely say that he does embody the charisma. He knows how to make himself come across as a threat. But also he has a broader presence to him, a presence that allows him to gain that image, that impression of control, and someone who can believably wield a lot of power and potentially even share that power. So for that reason, Liev Schreiber as the god of war, Ares. Next up, we're moving on to his lover, Aphrodite. Aphrodite is often simplified as the goddess of love. However, there is something a little bit deeper going on with her, because she isn't just the goddess of love. Because ancient Greece actually defined four different kinds of love: familial love, friendly love, erotic love, and then a broader fourth kind of love. There are each of these have specific names. I should probably check them beforehand, but that's not the point. Um, Aphrodite herself is specifically the goddess of erotic love, of falling manically in love, of having, effectively having that pull, that very physical, very immediate, very carnal pull that drives people towards each other. And that's probably why she is she was the patron goddess of prostitutes throughout ancient Greece. Uh, and when it comes to playing her, or more precisely when it comes to finding a new interpretation of her, one that is more suited to the modern age, you can't really take it is somewhat hard to take the character as she is, be, because uh, because of because the ways because there are differences in the ways she is viewed and the ways in which uh, uh, and ways in which she is interpreted, or more precisely, how the views of others have interpreted her. So so what do I base my interpretation of Aphrodite upon? Well, of all people, I'm actually going to resort a little bit to J.K. Rowling, because before she was the turf extraordinaire who, who right wingers are currently fawning over, she very much was a target uh, of right wing displeasure, so to speak, and she was very effective at countering or shutting down that level of dismay. One particular, and in fact, one particular such critic of her called her an old whore, and while she did say that's not actually the point, while also dragging the guy, she did mention liking the expression of old whore because it sounded Shakespearean, and I very much understand where she's coming from. I also very much understand where he's coming from. The idea of the idea of an old whore, someone who someone who has spent a lot of their youth, um, a lot of their youth coasting more or less on their attraction and moving away from any kind of connection that wasn't based on lust and on sex, and therefore because that was what they focused upon in their youth, as they grew older they no longer they didn't have any alternatives, no longer had any alternatives to seek, ultimately leaving this person, like without a meaningful network of connections around them. It is a somewhat tragic archetype, but also a very misogynistic one. And I think an interpretation of Aphrodite would be best served by turning this archetype on its head and making the old whore into a positive. And keep in mind, our society is much more sex positive and more feminist, and much more feminist than ancient Greece was. So, in that sense, the role that Aphrodite would take would change quite dramatically, because to someone like her, sex isn't just mindless lust. It's passion. It's connection. It's trust. It's fulfillment. That is what that is what she is. That is what she is after, and that is what she denies you if you, uh, if you cross her in any way, or if you cross the people she protects. So, so yeah. Even though she isn't as impressive, she is still. She is still formidable because she very much understands and embodies that particular kind of connection that people build with each other, and therefore you really need, when it comes to who should play her, that is someone who really needs to understand that level of connection and commitment that people can bring when it comes to interacting with each other. And for my money, the person who best exemplifies that is Nina Hartley. She's been involved in she's been involved in sex work for almost 50 years by this point, the point of this video's production. So she very much by making a living out of this field, she very much understands what it is that brings people to it, what it is that drives them, and what its meaning overall actually is. And in fact, if you look at uh, comment sections on her videos, and I do mean Pornhub here, she is very much praised, even though you know not and because she does still have it. She is still a very inspiring performer. I particularly remember one video where she exemplifies a particular sexual technique, and some people describe, and there was one particular comment that called her, that said that she is God showcasing her greatness. Like, seriously, that's the level of devotion and attention that Aphrodite herself can command. And for that reason, Nina Hartley is Aphrodite. Moving on from Aphrodite to her husband, Hephaestus. This picture is technically labeled Vulcan, aka the Roman god, but I'm calling it Hephaestus because those names are to some extent used interchangeably. And I have to say, Hephaestus is a guy who actually means plenty to me. I actually have a little figurine of him. I am I am somewhat upset that the figurine isn't disabled in any way, or visibly disabled, even though that is uh, that is a meaningful aspect of Hephaestus himself as a character. Um, but I digress. Thing is, this character means plenty to me, as the god of crafts, of smithing, of metalwork, and also somewhat interestingly of fire, or of all aspects that uh, pertain to building and constructing stuff. So also as I mentioned, he is disabled, but finds ways around that disability with the use of his uh, creativity and his ability to create a variety of uh, variety of different alternatives, or means for which to strengthen himself. And as the god of the I mentioned, he is the god of the forge. He is the god. He is one of those gods of creativity. Uh, one could call him someone who comes up with new machines, new means through which to um, express himself, or through which to accomplish a wide variety of different goals. He has a very mechanistic, and it very much embodies that mechanistic level of understanding and of viewing the world, and seeing the ways in which devices or machines more broadly can be used in a variety of different situations in order to lead to improvements. He is able to, and to that end, he is able to see through anything and understand um, a lot of things. Unfortunately, due to his disability, he also is shat on quite extensively, even though he even though arguably uh, the world very much is modern world is very much fueled by the results of the work of Hephaestus, and and that led to him that led to him not exactly being more the butt of jokes in a lot of in a lot of situations. So there is some level of tragedy to him, of him being the unseen realizer, someone who can someone who makes things happen even though no one acknowledges it. Actually, funny story, creates Zeus's thunderbolts. Like, yeah, that's not something that Zeus himself makes happen. That's something Hephaestus builds for him. I was very surprised when I found that out. So, to this end, you really need someone who arguably strikes a low profile, despite being a figure of potentially sizable size and strength, and and could potentially draw the sympathy or the and the attention of an audience. And I think the best choice to play that character is Barry Sloane, also known for playing Destruction on the Sandman series, or in the Sandman series. I do admit I haven't seen the episodes where he where he shows up yet. However, I do. However, I am quite confident that or from what I've seen so far of the Sandman, I know that I know that their casting decisions are pretty much always on point, and and the acting performances are for the most part very well executed. So I very much trust that this is a good casting decision, and I trust that that level of experimentation, creativity, that spark of brilliance is something that would make is very much specific to Festus himself, and therefore I think Barry Sloane would be a very good choice to make Hephaestus come to life. Moving on from the Smith god of Olympus to his mother, the Queen of Olympus, Hera. Hera has has somewhat of a sordid reputation, one could say so. Though it has to be said that the main reason she has that sordid reputation is because of her relationship or her standing with one of the guys who can arguably called the main character of Greek mythology, Heracles. They are not related, despite the despite the name similarity. However, um, however, she still has a very strong hatred towards him. Not necessarily for anything that he did, but for what it is that for what it is that he stands for. Um, Taking a step a little bit, a little bit behind, Hera herself, her domains are a lot of things that one would traditionally associate with womanhood. So that's motherhood, that's marriage, that's in general keeping your house together as a woman. So it would be very easy to call her the Treadwife goddess, and while that would be accurate in in an ancient Greece context, it doesn't necessarily work in a modern context because as the queen of the gods, she actually has her role is her role within her household and within society more broadly isn't just as the isn't just as the as her husband's helper. She is very much uh, his chief of staff, so to speak. She is the one who actually runs the house, which requires her actually taking on responsibilities and duties of towards people beyond her. If you've seen Game of Thrones, you will you will know that you'll know that both Catelyn Stark and Cersei Lannister, um, or should I say Cersei Baratheon, have have roles and attributes that go beyond just making princes or lordlings. They do actually have they do actually have people actually have people under them who who are charged with taking care of the society or of the social milieu from within which they stem. And in a very weird, very twisted way, that is what Hera herself actually does, because or particularly when targeting Heracles or other bastards of her, or should I say, illegitimate children of her husbands. She can't necessarily target him and make him stop because first of all, he outranks her. Second of all, he outmuscles her by a lot. But she can do plenty to cut any of the connections he has with he has with other people, other households. and also all of these illegitimate children are an insult to her in particular, because they are because they are the results of her husband's passion outside of his relationship to her, which is which is very much anathema when it comes to marriage. She's very much doing her best to keep her own yard, um, as to clear out her own yard as much as possible. That being said, woobifying her is or making her out to be this uh, helpless victim, doing her best to clear out and ensure at least a somewhat stable life, is not a particularly accurate understanding of her either, because as far as I know, uh, Hephaestus is actually her legitimate son, but she still uh, threw him off Mount Olympus on account of how ugly he is. So she is very much concerned with her image and her domain, and for that reason, when it comes to casting her, it's not just about finding the character who has finding an actor with tradwife energy. Rather the role should be dedicated to someone who can uh, who can build a specific connection with an audience, and a connection that would allow this actor to come across uh, as warm on plenty of occasions, but also turn cold and uh, hostile, and also turn cold and hostile and ready to throw down, and and, and that is an energy that I have to say I found surprisingly easy to find. And there are some easy casting choices I could resort to. The first of which is Lena Headey, who played the previously mentioned Cersei Lannister slash Baratheon. Um, but however, I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced of her, and also I think she would want to perhaps take a break from from that kind of uh, from that kind of story. One casting choice that would be particularly ironic would potentially be Holly Marie Combs, who played one of the Charmed ones in the original show, because in many ways, her character's arc within that show was about was of her finding a way to um, be a modern emancipated woman while still wanting a lot of the traditional trappings of womanhood, of taking care of a house and having a lot of kids around her. And however, with all due respect to Holly Marie Combs, I think she's a little bit too comely, pun totally intended, for this kind of role. When it comes to someone who really embodies the you know that majesty that I think would befit the queen of the gods, while also bringing out all of the other aspects. I think the best choice is Susanna Thompson. Admittedly, I first came to know her through her role in Arrow as Moira Queen, and within that role, she was more in the she played the tradwife aspect quite a little bit more, where she was just where she was primarily a supportive motherly figure, there to there to help her family in whatever it is they came across. However, she does have the capability to go, to go the other way and come across as both very intimate, but also very menacing. She actually played the Borg Queen on a few occasions in Star Trek Voyager, and and while those episodes aren't not all of those episodes are among the greatest of the series. I can safely say that her performance, gave a made a lasting impression on all of these occasions. So, so for that reason, I imagine her being the best choice to play Hera. Moving on from Hera to her husband Zeus. And yeah, don't at me. I know I know the statue is occasionally labeled as one of Jupiter, but you know what? From a but from a broader perspective, he is functionally very apt to represent. This statue is very apt to represent Zeus as well, the king of the gods, the one who overthrew the reign of the Titans, commanded by his own old man, by his father Cronus. Cronus or Kronos, who knows? Uh, and anyway, point is he overthrew the old order, which was led by his dad, and also he led the Olympians in another war against the giants or the gigantes, depending on how you wish to speak it, or how pedantic you are. And so yeah, that really goes to say that he is very much an effective an effective ruler, and he knows how to take control and command of any certain situations, of a variety of situations. And it is somewhat tempting for those reasons to portray him as an old man with a lot of wisdom, and make him seem as though he is as though he is in charge through through uh, that factor. But people often forget that he is actually canonically the youngest of his siblings, and it is really the primary means through which he holds power is very much his overwhelming might, even when compared to the other characters on this godly tier. The only one who can kind of stack up to him is actually his one of his older brothers, Poseidon. Given that only the two of them were able to defeat Typhon, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, the point of this anyway, he is less a philosopher king and more of a warrior king, someone who always gets his way. And while he is capable of assisting, supporting others, he is. I think it is safe to say that he is primarily more well known for his selfishness, and for the single-minded drive he has towards fulfilling his passions, his desires. Uh, Especially when you consider just how many illegitimate children he has, and how many of them, and the fact that the Greek pantheon is more or less populated by populated by his children. And by that I primarily mean the generations after him, because obviously the generations before him, uh, that couldn't have happened. But still, it is quite noticeable that the generations before the Olympians are much smaller, are fewer in number, when compared to what came before that, and that is very much due to him, because he gets things going, whether these things are good or bad. It is so I very much see him as he is very much a what you see is what you get kind of character. And when it comes to, and when I've talked about others, I've talked about the about any potential complexities tied to them. But with him, it's really not that complicated. He is the youngest. He has the most power, and therefore he has no reason to be to control his impulses. He just uh, he just does whatever he wants. But he still has that but he still has that stance, that level of or that particular standing, that particular aura that allows him to inspire that level of authority that would be necessary for him to that would be necessary for him to really command the respect or cooperation of his brethren. And when it comes to a character who can portray that duality, I think the best choice is Richard Madden. I'm pretty sure cast him as a uh, uh, I've cast him as a villain in another another such video where I did casts. However, this is not really based on my decision for that video. This is very much based on my decision to portray him here. And given I already made some parallels to Game of Thrones, I'm gonna make another one. Zeus is basically Robert Baratheon if Robert Baratheon hadn't lost Lyanna. So he's very much still still large, still in charge, but very much driven to do more things. And by do more things, that would actually mean uh, get more partners, get more illegitimate children, and therefore get a lot of things moving forward, but not a lot of them would actually connect. So while it would be tempting to bring Mark Addy back for the role, it's been stated even at the time that Mark Addy isn't the best casting choice for Robert Baratheon. However, Richard Madden, who played Robb Stark on Game of Thrones, has a similar enough energy or appeal. Imagine or think of a Robb Stark without his without his moral compass, and or without his moral compass, and also winning the war that he started with Talisa by his side. That's the kind of because that's the kind of character Robert Baratheon would have been if if he uh, if everything went smoothly for him. He would just be he would just be an unstoppable uh, monster who really sees no reason to limit himself in any way. And however, there are various other monsters um, around him that make him seem like a more that might make him seem as a more um, acceptable option, because he isn't really outright malicious. He is just not caring, and I think that duality can very effectively be presented by Mr. Madden here, which is why I choose him to play Zeus. Next up, we have one of Zeus's sisters, uh, Demeter, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the goddess of the harvest, and also partly of the seasons. If I'm not mistaken, she also has some kind of role when it comes to also lawmaking. Uh, interestingly enough, because because to some extent she decides how it is that because given that she dictates over the over the environment, she also has some level of dictation over how human behavior works. As such, she is very much ruled by a steady hand and a continuous strong approach towards towards her activities. but that strong approach doesn't translate to her, towards her being cold. I'll remind you that in Greek mythology, the reason winter exists is because uh, Demeter's daughter Persephone was taken away from her by her brother Hades, and that brings a lot of grief and a lot of sorrow upon her, and through that sorrow, winter emerges. So, so yeah. To that end, I think to that end, I think it's pretty clear what kind of character, what kind of character she is. She is very much one. She is very much someone who, who believes in and follows set rules, set patterns, set established conventions, and because she understands these conventions being generally important for overall flourishing, not just not just of her, but for but for everyone else. She does because she does still have that compassionate aspect to her, and also through the fact that she is a through the fact that she's the goddess of the harvest, and the cornucopia is one of her symbols. I imagine I'm gonna bring the term tradwife again because I think it very much fits her. The idea of her being a buff tradwife, like someone who like she physically works the fields herself, and as such she would be and as such she would have she would have more of a stout build. And given I mentioned that, I think my choice for who should play her is going to be completely obvious: Gwendolyn Christie. Because of course it's gonna be Gwendolyn Christie. First of all, she has the look. Like you can very much believe her being a stout housewife, or a stout trad wife. And also, I think she has the range to believably pull off both the more stern, taciturn nature that of Demeter in general when it comes to when it comes to making sure that things go as effectively as they should. But also she can embody that. Surprising warmth, and that could result from her. That very much very much results in the in the passion and in the work that she in the passion and in the work that she brings. So for that reason, I see Gwendolyn Christie as Demeter. Moving on to the last of her sisters, Hestia. Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, of the home, and of statecraft. Funnily enough, but then again, it's kind of the same thing. It's kind of the same thing as with Demeter. It's an extension of the previous domain. So how the home is put together, the home being where someone lives, or the intimate space of where someone lives, but also how the broader home, as in the as in the larger social organization of where people live, is actually structured and run. So to that extent, if Demeter would be a buff trad wife, I think Hestia would be more of a typical trad wife, someone who manages smaller aspects of the home, someone who makes sure that everything within it works effectively. Then she also has that secondary aspect, not of leadership, but of administration, of making sure that making sure that society overall works works as it is supposed to, and it is that and it is that level of attention to detail that I think would be, that I think would be interesting for her to dive into. Also, in my interpretation, I actually see these two getting together as a pair of cottagecore lesbians, and by these two I mean Hestia and Demeter. You might say, oh, dude, no, they are sisters. To which I say, um, to which I'll say that Zeus and Hera are also siblings. They're freaking married. Also, Zeus has children with both of these women, so it really doesn't matter to the Greek pantheon. So these two can very much become a pair of cottagecore tradwife lesbians, even if they take the idea in different directions. That also means that I have to find someone who I have to find someone who can match Gwendolyn Christie in that regard. Someone with whom I think she would have strong chemistry. And to be honest, I'm I think I've done a good job, but I'll let you decide on whether that really is the case, because my choice for who to play Hestia is Melissa McCarthy. Yeah, I know she's not the most popular actress right now, but really, a lot of what makes her less than popular these days is the fact that she's been cast in very unsuitable roles, and a lot of the humor is supposed to be, oh lol, isn't it fun? Isn't it funny that uh, isn't it funny that this character of all people is now stuck in an, stuck doing action hero stuff? To which I say, if that is all your humor is based on, then you just made a bad movie. But I really don't blame uh, Melissa herself for any of it, because when she's actually given good material or uh, workable material, she's actually able to pull off some uh, very interesting, very memorable performances. I'll remind you of how I first encountered her as Suki St. James in the Gilmore Girls, where she was very much one of the highlights of the show, and also through her relationship with with the titular girls, her friendship more precisely, through her broader romantic relationship that she had with a character whose name I'm currently blanking on. She was a very memorable, very warm, very enthusiastic presence that you were very much looking forward to. Very much looking forward to greeting whenever you, whenever you opened up the show. And also, after Gilmore Girls was over, she was able to showcase her chops as a leading lady in Mike and Molly. And say what you will about Mike and Molly, a lot of the jokes were still about were still about the leads having a specific size. But I actually think that those jokes were a little bit better at playing on their physical presences, pun totally intended, of the two leads. Not just in terms of their size, but also in terms of their but also in terms of their appeal, in terms of how it is that um, in terms of how it is that they come across, what kind of personalities they have or are capable of embodying. And within that role, Melissa was capable of demonstrating, a lot of warmth, plenty of aloofness, but also some moments of rage, and it was moments like those that really make her and and through those moments she was she I think she really came a I really think she came to light and really made some really made for some memorable and exciting performances. Also, as I said, I think her and Gwendolyn Christie would have amazing chemistry together. So, for that reason, I am casting Melissa McCarthy as Hestia. And now, if I'm not mistaken, yes, last and not least among the deities I'll be talking about, Athena. the goddess of wisdom, of strategic warfare, and also of handicraft, so to speak. So she is basically so she is to some extent the DIY queen of Mount Olympus. If you'll remember, Arachne actually actually challenged her, uh, actually challenged Athena, saying that she is a better, weaver slash seamstress than than the goddess herself. And it is that hubris that led to her becoming becoming a spider. Hell, Arachne, her name. That's how we get that's how we get a lot of stuff about um, spiders. And I get a lot of names about around spiders, such as arachnophobia, arachnology. I wonder if that's a thing that's officially acknowledged. Anyway, that's beside the point. The point is, Athena is this is who Athena is. She is the goddess of wisdom, of strategic warfare. She is. I have already talked about her and how she's capable of how she often how she bests her brother Ares. Maybe not every single time, but often enough for it to count, for it to for her to for her reputation to be much better than his, and and also of various crafts. Because I'm pretty sure Arachne was not the only was not the only figure of Greek mythology who saw her wrath, because for declaring that for a declaration such as that. Uh, Something that jumped out to me while doing while doing a little bit of research for this video is that uh, is that Athena is somewhat controversial within feminist circles, because there are plenty of feminists who see her as a regressive, someone who regressive and arguably a gender traitor, someone who pushes women down in order to maybe not necessarily to glorify men, but the end result is still that men end up being glorified in this society. Perhaps because perhaps because she doesn't criticize them as effectively. I would say that she doesn't perhaps intend to be anti-feminist, but she does her her interest lies more in terms of proving herself, in terms of showcasing her own skill and her own knowledge. In a very interesting way, she is very similar to her father, in the terms that they both have that same level of hubris, of a conviction towards their own superiority over others. Even though that kind of gets showcased in different ways. When it comes to Zeus, he's just broadly hedonistic. Uh, Athena, by comparison, is more of a debate bro, or a debate sis, if you will. Like like she is very much, like to her, it's about, she wants to showcase her skills, her abilities, her knowledge, in all occasions. But or more precisely, she ends up doing so simply because it's she is because she isn't just an as while she might be arrogant, she isn't haughty. She has she rather has she rather has a calmer demeanor that still harbors a that still harbors that level of conviction of intellect, obviously, but also but also of arguably a lack of wisdom in a certain regard. But though she would say that it isn't bragging if you can back it up, and to some extent she can actually do that. I actually heard a podcast that is somewhat relevant, to this decision. One that describes her as when it says that because she emerged fully formed from the head of Zeus, that is basically her role, more or less. Not exactly the head of Zeus, but the heads of people in general. So when it comes to Athena, the most fitting expression isn't might not be get on my level, as I've already alluded to, but Eureka. Like, she is that flash of brilliance that that comes to you whenever you've cracked a a major issue. That uh, and I think that really reflects her her temperament and her personality to a broad degree. uh, to a broad degree. The fact that the fact that she embodies that realization, and it is for that reason that she is, and because she is constantly within that brilliance, there is nothing that really surprises her. She has that specific, it's not a specific level of knowledge that would allow her to control most situations, and she always looks like she is one step ahead of everyone else, because most of the time she actually is. And therefore, whoever would play her would have to embody that same level of knowledge, that same level of insight, and also that same level of hubris, but without any haughtiness, like keeping it cool, keeping it restrained. And I think the actor or actress, I'm pretty much thinking about using actor in a gender neutral manner, who can most effectively embody that facet of this character is Lucy Lawless. Like, I had to at some point within this video include some kind of tribute to the um, to the Hercules and Xena TV show universe from the mid '90s, because in many ways that particular franchise reignited and reinvigorated discussions and interest within Greek mythology, and very much very much defined how how people view how people view this mythology today. Not necessarily academics, but like you know a broader degree of common people. And uh, and honestly, I can think of and that also made and it also made Lucy Lawless one of the a an important figure within media, given that after Xena was done, she had plenty of other notable high profile roles, chief among them being Spartacus. So I imagine her coming back into the limelight, particularly in a role such as this, would perhaps very much speak to her, and and it is through her demeanor and through her presentation that I trust that she can take a character, a character such as Athena, and present her in an inspiring and captivating way. So for that reason, Lucy Lawless as Athena. And before I go, I'll say that these are all the god characters that I will cast over the course of this over the course of this video. Those of you who have seen the original, who have seen the original video, will note that there is one particular goddess who is conspicuous through her absence, but I'll be talking about her separately when I'll be presenting the casting choices for a variety of for a variety of other characters within this Charmed reboot. Until I get to that, however, I do want to talk about the gods in a more abstract sense. Namely, I want to talk about some behind-the-scenes figures. Someone who I would want working on this show and making it come to life in a way in a way it wouldn't have before. And to that end, there are exactly two people that I have chosen. The first one is Constance M. Burge, also known as Connie, who has been a writer and producer in television for a pretty long time now. Uh, most notably, she was the producer and creator of the original Charmed series. And there are plenty of people who, have noted that the show actually went downhill after after she left the behind the scenes crew. And when I looked through the rest of her, uh, through the rest of her body of work, I found that she actually has a lot going for her. She wrote for Eureka. She wrote the pilot. She was one of the co-writers of the Charmed reboot pilot, and also before Charmed, she actually worked on Savannah. Sorry about that. A show that was set in the city of Savannah, Georgia, and following three young women who were estranged and in the show's present come together again. Sound familiar? I thought so. Uh, Savannah was somewhat infamously cancelled mid-season and replaced by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So the rivalry between Buffy and Charmed, when I found that out, the rivalry between Buffy and Charmed made a little bit more sense. Not just because they were, because they weren't just both, female-driven fantasy shows that came out around the same time, but also they both emerged as a result of one particular show getting canceled. So, I will admit it was a little bit funny to find that out, but that's beside the point. The point is, I recognize that this is a topic that is near and dear to her heart, and therefore it is something that I think it is something that she personally is perhaps one of the most apt people to talk about. And now in a post Me Too era where she doesn't have to worry about about other producers swooping in and wrecking her work, cough Brad Kern, cough cough. She will most likely do a a pretty good job on this show. Maybe not as chief producer or showrunner, but at the very least as kind of like a story consultant moving forward. The second person I want to bring into this fold, into the behind the scenes fold of this show is the mythology guy. Yeah, I do admit I don't know what his legal name is, but I will say that. So I'm just gonna call him the mythology guy, and I will say that he does, precisely for the reason that he has a good understanding of the characters that this show is going to be covering. If it is, given it is supposed to cover a lot of, mythologies. He actually has a Kickstarter, if I'm not mistaken, for a card game involving the Greek pantheon. So to that end, I think he would make an. So to that end, I think he is. I think he understands the playfulness that is endemic to the concept of mythological adaptations and really adaptations more broadly. And I think he would be a very worthwhile consultant to keep on set in order to make sure that the deities are presented as correctly as possible. Not necessarily to the letter of the legends, but more to the spirit of the legends. And yeah, that was my video. I'm pretty sure it was long as fuck. Yeah, it is long as fuck, over an hour. But still, I had fun and I had a lot of things to say. So I'd like to thank you for holding out with me for as long as you have. If you've enjoyed holding out with me, well then please like the video, maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the concept of the video or to any of the choices I presented therein, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe, and ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about the print medium and various selected works therein. So if that sounds interesting to you, then go ahead and check it out. It's in the description down. It's linked in the description down below. Right past my social media links, which I'll suggest you check out should you choose to. If my thoughts on the print medium don't interest you, then I suggest you stay on this channel, where where aside from the occasional casting video, I also do more stuff when it comes to movies and TV, like retrospectives, like reviews, like various other kinds of pitches, all kinds of fun stuff. And occasionally I tackle other topics as well. If none of the options I presented to you sounds interesting, well then I suggest you go ahead and do whatever you want the rest of your day, because it is your day. Because it is your day to do as you wish. And yeah, now I'm completely done. So until next time, I have been the One Take Man.